Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wisdom from North, the place where we're diving into the deeper meaning of life and asking the big questions. My name is Jannica, and today I'm here with Bridget Nielsen, who is an author. She's an artist of life. She's a healer, a medium, and quite the expert on the Hybridization Program, which we will focus on today, as well as UFOs, extraterrestrial beings, and extra-dimensional beings. Hello, Bridget. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Good to be on your show.
It's wonderful having you here because I'm very excited about this topic because ever since I was a child, I've been fascinated by UFOs and our galactic family and the stars. And then, I was online because I'm constantly on YouTube researching for people to interview. And I saw this interview with you where you spoke about hybrid children. And this was completely new to me. And I hadn't heard of the idea before. And it was quite a stretch for my mind, but anything is possible. Actually, that's what I've arrived at, that anything is actually possible. But what I find interesting, before we delve into that topic, is that you used to have a more conventional life. You have a double major in fine arts and business administration, and you wrote a book when you were 22 years old about how to, have passion in your career. And then in 2011, you started going into the spiritual path, like truly and having contact with extraterrestrials. Can you kind of take us through this journey, like this big jump from this conventional life to all of a sudden this really spiritual quest?
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting jump. I think a lot of probably your listeners and a lot of us have made that jump probably around the same time. I've seen that people kind of make that jump from about 2009, 2010, 2011, like 2012. That's when like everyone started to kind of like break out, even if they were in kind of more rigid or traditional structures. But for me, I graduated from college in 2009, and then I wrote my book, and all of a sudden, being in Los Angeles, I attribute a lot of it to that because it is one of the hotbeds for the New Age movement. All of Southern California is where a lot of different channels came out of, as well as just a lot of, I think, like new inspiration coming through in the collective. And for me at that time, I was working at an ad agency and doing marketing for Disney and Warner Brothers and like big time clients and helping them with campaigns. But eventually, I think with that other energetic influence mixed with the overworking and the distancing from my true soul's path, that convergence just like erupted in me, and I quit the job, and I was like, I've lost my soul, and so what can I do now? I've got to get back to myself.
And so it kind of started with you delving into spiritual material, and you work as a medium, and you had clients, and then all of a sudden you got interested in UFOs, because from what I understood, that wasn't a topic that you were into.
No, I mean, even just hearing you speak about what we're speaking about today, like introducing, I'm going, I'm talking about that? Like there's a part of my head that's still like, how did this happen? But yeah, it wasn't a part of my sphere at all. I mean, the closest thing to ETs that I had like ever like really thought about was Independence Day, the movie or something. So yeah, how that happened was that I was working with a lot of clients on all different modalities, like working with other lives, working with entity attachment, mediumship, angels, like the whole gamut, and that's quite out there in and of itself. But when the idea of UFOs and particularly abduction came up, I was going, this is not that. I don't believe it. I can believe in these other lives, but I can't believe in this. And in our training, we focused an afternoon on abduction and ETs. And in that afternoon, one of the women in our group, in our training, she was an experiencer. She knew that she had these experiences of particularly abduction, and I felt it. And when you feel something from someone else that's truth, you just know it resonates in your body. And that's what happened to me with her. And so I had to at least open the door a little bit. And then from there, once I acknowledged that it could be a possibility, all these clients kept coming to me that were abductees. And when I spoke to my other comrades in the healing training, I said, "Are you getting abductees?" And they're like, "No." And so I'm going, okay, there's something with me and this, but I didn't quite know what.
So, for those who are not familiar with abductees, can you just shortly explain what that is?
Yes. Well, there's a lot of different kind of, I guess, abduction programs. There's government ones that have been going on since the 40s and 50s, which we won't really get into. But then there's also the gray abduction, which are parallel reality humans. And they are modified humans from a different parallel Earth who have mutated themselves to the point where they can't reproduce. And they're masters of technology, masters at time travel, but they lack emotional capacity, emotional intelligence. And so they needed to perpetuate their species, but also we are them in a different reality. So it's one of those things that it's not like some foreign alien race like coming and taking us. It's more like us taking us. And so what they would do is they would take humans from Earth and they would take our genetic material, so our eggs or sperm, and from there they would create beings and create children that would then perpetuate themselves. But they didn't have a lot of their genetics in it. They used mostly ours and other ET genetics. And so that was the basics of what that program was like.
And people who have been abducted, one can assume that this is pretty rare, but apparently it's not, from what I've learned.
Right. I know this could be a freaky thing. I've heard up to a third of the world's population has been abducted. That could involve other programs as well, but it's a lot bigger than you think, which is freaky.
So what is the reason that we don't know that this is going on?
The reason that we don't know is because this is one of the deepest buried subconscious experiences that we've had in this incarnation. They've blank slated our memories of this happening, and so we forget, as well as it's like a dream. It's like something that we can't imagine, like from an ego standpoint. So it's easily gets rid off as something that's fantasy or just a dream, when in reality there's a lot more going on in all other realms that are actually merging with this reality too, that are real.
So how long has this particular program been going on? Does it have to do with the atom bomb? That there was more activity in the late 40s and 50s?
It did start around that time. I don't know if there's a direct correlation. There's a correlation between, that's the time that really humanity started this opening into a greater awakening and expansion that looked like, crazy things like the atom bomb, but also it was an expansion of our consciousness, and that's when it started to begin around like 1949. And so from that point, this is when that time space happened of the abductions occurring, as well as humanity's awaken, which they are correlated, the abduction and humanity awakening.
So these grays, I mean, we've heard a lot about them. I assume that there's not just one type. There's many grays. Yeah.
Yes.
And they are the ones that are have these big black eyes and big heads and not very tall. They're short, yeah. And they are us in a way in the future, in a sort of a bad version, or or like a malevolent version.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like if we went really south. I mean, we're pretty south with the wars and destroying Earth. That's pretty south. But I mean, if that path continued, that would be the manifestation of that, which would be highly intellectual, non-emotional, very technological, malevolent. So that's that reflection to us. And what is more scary than anything is seeing that part of ourselves that did go down that path. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why this experience can be so scary for people.
Yes, and the abduction experiences as well can be scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to come back to that, but I just want to mention that this is possible because there is no time.
Yes.
Yeah, so if we think like that, there's no time, it's just another timeline. So, so these grays, they have been taken, a lot of humans, you're saying, and then what do you say? Mixing the materials with them and humans. So what happens? What is the result of that?
Right. Well, the result of that is my specific area, which is hybrid children, as well as other full-on civilizations that have been created like through these abductions. So beings, civilizations, and also more relevant to us at this particular moment would be these hybrid kids who are actually our children, like genetic children created. And there's a small pocket of them that will be dropped off on Earth, and it will be a part of our integration from from Earth to the stars, because they're like the intermediary that is the most, not in a bad way, but watered down, the most like us, the most unassuming, they're kids, but still high enough that we have to really stretch. And that stretching will then extend to other ET races that were created in the program that are a lot like us, as well as ones that are just, blue and 12 feet tall. So this is like a slow integration process, and the hybrid children are a part of that.
So why don't they have some malevolent energy in them if they also come from the grays?
It's a great question. What I've felt and intuited and heard from other sources as well is that originally, I don't think that in the early part of the program, so say like the 40s, 50s, 60s, they didn't care. They were just trying to create incarnational bodies. They were creating vessels to incarnate into with our genetic material. And of course, they have to also, in the creation of a being, inject like an energetic essence as well. But the thing that they had trouble with, the thing that was prohibiting them from having these children live, they would actually die because they weren't well, they were sickly, but the thing that they needed was love. And love came from us. And so on the ships, even though it was a crazy experience and there could be abduction and you're being handed this alien child that you're knowing is yours, amongst all of that, there was a human capacity that we delivered to them, that we shared with them, that was nurture, that was love. And I think at that point, something activated in these kids as well as them that turned the tides and made them benevolent. It turned on their DNA. It turned on like the true greater essence of them, which enabled them to be positive.
So how many children are we talking about? And where are they now?
The population of the hybrid children is less than you'd think, because we're dealing with, the bigger number of like abduction.
Okay.
But a lot of that genetic material and a lot of that creation was made for these other hybrid civilizations who will land later and assist Earth in its kind of galactic awakening and galactic integration. But the hybrid children are like, they're a specific pocket and a specific, they have a specific purpose that isn't super global. It's more dedicated to the people who are on the front of the wave of, say, awakening, the ones that that need to understand this information and awaken to it first and integrate it so that they can help the collective. So thus, I mean, it could be just in the millions, not even very much. It could be in the 100,000s, not very many, because they didn't need that many to do this part. They just needed that integration for a small amount of humans to then help the rest of humanity.
So is the plan that they will come to Earth at one point, for instance, in our lifetime, that we will see them physically?
Yes. Yeah. And people already have. There's quite a few, especially in Sedona where I am, who have met them. The kid, whether it shows up in the backyard or actually literally teleports into the room and has a telepathic conversation, like with the mother. There have been quite a few cases of them actually physically appearing. So those are isolated cases and not very many. And in most of those cases, it was because that parent wasn't on their path, had kind of slowed down on their awakening, and the kid was like, get back in gear. Like, we got to merge these realities and have you be able to really meet me and meet this reality. So a lot of the cases of people meeting the kids and meeting certain beings right now is because they're not doing their work. Okay. A lot of people that are doing their work aren't meeting them because they're on it. So it's this strange dance that I've observed.
So when do you think that the full disclosure will happen?
I mean, the interesting thing is, and maybe it's because I'm in Sedona, there's so many converging timelines. There's so many possible realities and outcomes. And I feel a lot of them here because there's a lot of agendas here. There's a lot of government energy. There's a lot of ET energy. There's a lot of awakening energy. So I get kind of like jumbled on a lot of different timelines. Disclosure could happen soon. Full disclosure. And if soon being like maybe in the next few years, if we're lucky. But I mean, the like open contact and things occurring will likely happen within the next like 10, 15, 20 years. So, I mean, we're open contact, ships are flying around. So it's not super far away. I mean, but at the same time it is.
It's crazy to think about because that will change everything.
Yeah.
Everything, the way we look at life, the way we look at history and everything. It's the crazy thought. And I'm thinking just right now, I'm thinking out loud that will these children survive? You know, there are a lot of people on this earth who wants control. And if they know that we're not the only ones, I mean, is there a danger to disclosure too? I guess my question is.
Yeah, I think that and I think that's the refinement and the purpose of why I think in this New Age or spiritual segment, it's so key, all the training and all the personal work we've done, is because it is literally a lean to the right, a lean to the left of going down a timeline where disclosure happens and it's all out war and like aliens, bad alien war and craziness. And then at the same time, if we're truly radiating like a positive energy and also acknowledging all that's happening on all levels, we can go down a positive timeline where a lot of the crap doesn't happen and we have a really positive experience. So it really is that microcosmic responsibility that's necessary at this timing. It's like, which way are you gonna go? And I can feel and I can see both are possible. And you're right, they don't want us to know. They don't, the governments and like all the powers that be or the power that was. But the thing about the kids is that they don't exist, they can't land in the reality where Big Brother and those energies exist. So we have to shift ourselves, we have to create a new world where they don't exist, and then the kids will be safe.
Okay.
To a certain
So that's kind of every soul or every person's responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why it's so important that every human being work on themselves.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So clearly you have had abductions as well. How has that experience been to you? Because I had a very interesting interview with Sherry Wilde. I don't know if you know her, but she has written a book about her abductions, and it was quite scary. She went down to, she was hypnotized, and then the story came, and she often was driving around down the road, and then these strange beings were stopping her, and then she just forgot everything. And 2 hours later, she was like, "Why am I here in the street?" And then in the hypnotized state, she would see that there was beings that were not from this earth, who was taking her out of the car. It's a little bit scary, and I know the movie or series by Steven Spielberg, Taken. I've seen that as well, and it's also about this family where everybody's being abducted, like the whole family, and they are scary experiences.
Yeah.
So my question is, how has this been for you, and why do you think the experiences seem so scary? If it's a good agenda, if they really want to, do something positive, why is it so frightening?
Right. Well, I mean, originally, I don't think that they wanted it to be a positive. Like, they didn't care. They don't
Right.
have that carrying capacity for it to be positive. They're benevolent, So, but the outcome they wanted as different than what they experienced. I mean, even on the ships, there's countless cases of them showing TV screens and holographic screens of like, "Hey, don't blow up your world. Hey, you got to take care of your planet. Hey," so they wanted things to be different. Now, could they treat us differently in those cases? No. And part of the reason is because even though they're benevolent, we got to like expand back our perspective. They're looking at us as physical vessels for incarnation, which is what we are from a greater perspective. We're just a bodysuit that gets to like have a specific perspective for a certain amount of time. So in a way, like for us, in our perspective, it's completely terrifying. It's completely wrong, abusive, horrible, like it's like a form of rape, like all these things. It's very scary from that perspective. And then from another perspective, it's like, well, this is just a body and this is an experience, and we're playing on a much bigger scale, we're playing at a very big soul level that's happening as well. So it's just kind of like taking both of those into consideration. For me,
also, I just want to add that it's part of the soul contract, right? That
Yeah.
you actually have agreed to it before you come down to this earth. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it's a soul agreement, and it's what that means is that this life is about awakening. That's why we incarnated right now. And so what does awakening entail? Awakening entails being conscious of all aspects of ourselves, whether that's on Earth, other lives, time and space, being everything's now, all that stuff. But it also involves our galactic understanding, involving, the greater cosmos, as well as all of the underbelly, all the shadow of humanity, of ourselves, which is reflected in our governments and all the secrecy. So the abduction program is a really pivotal and master class of awakening, because it is like the darkest grittiness of our own secrets and mutilation energy, and at the same time opening the door to our galactic family. So there's a lot of reason why it happened, I feel.
And how has your experiences been?
Yeah, my experiences haven't been as bad as most people's.
Oh.
So, and that's partially generationally and the timing in the program, because the older generations, like such as my dad, had horrible, terrifying experiences after his regression and remembering his abductions. I mean, he was like a ghost for 3 days, just really having a hard time like integrating the energies. And I know I've heard the stories from all the people that have especially remembered their abduction experiences. It's ugh. And by the time it got to me and my generation, they had learned that they needed to take the human emotion and the human body into consideration and be a bit nicer. And so that was more of the experience that I had. And also I came in as a soul having that a little bit of a greater perspective. In my regressions, it came through that even when I was like 5 years old and being taken, the regressionist was saying, "Why are you okay with this?" And I had remembered the greater picture of what was happening with humanity and why I had incarnated. And so having that perspective gave me more of an understanding of why it was important.
Right. So this is in a dream state that you've been abducted, right? Because from what I remember, Sherry was abducted like in the middle of the day, but have you only been abducted during the night?
I've been one of the times, I don't remember the actual abduction, but I remember that being taken. It was 2 years ago here in Sedona. I was jogging, and then I saw a ship, and then it was like a blink of an eye, and everything kind of went starry. And then all of a sudden, I was back, but it felt like something had happened. And by the time I got home, my ovaries, killed. It was like I had just gotten surgery, and I was doubled over for the next 5 days, just completely immobilized. And this depends on like how much you want to remember, how much you want to experience. Because at that point, I was like, I want to remember. So they're like, great, we're not going to heal you all the way on the ship, because they can just, put you in a machine, they have these like tubes of liquid that they can just heal you in. But they let me keep a little bit of the physical symptoms to really go, no, this is real. Like, this is happening. So...
Yes, because they can erase your memory and everything if they want. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does it look like on these ships? I'm curious.
It's pretty exactly what you'd think. It's like, sterile, like just very basic. It almost feels like different people, it feels like kind of like a purpley, translucent, kind of glowy energy. It feels like a dream, but it's not. It's just more of a quasi-physical reality. There's lots of like hallways and doors, and the doors just like slide open, and there's elevators and different rooms, different sizes for different purposes. So it seems like what you would see in a movie, honestly.
Huh.
But the energy is different. The energy is like, it's beautiful because that it has a higher perspective. I mean, they're working on like free energy and stuff. So in a way it feels tingly because it's more expansive. And then on the other way, it's very sterile and stark and, you know, scary and cold in a way. So it has both of those playing at once.
So, do you think, or do you know if other species from or beings from other places more benevolent have they been kind of involved in this too? Like looked at this, you know, seen what's going on, and I'm just thinking that if there is a galactic family, maybe they would intervene and be like, you know, this is not a good way of doing it, a nice way of doing it.
They didn't get involved in any way.
Okay.
I think one of the reasons, because when you said they're, you know, it's a galactic family thing, I think that they also perceive these grays as human, like as a version of humanity. So it's kind of like, you humans are just going to do your stuff. It's like the prime directive. We can't interfere. But that doesn't, they didn't interfere with that exact program, but that doesn't mean that they're not totally assisting us and having their own experiences with us when we're not doing that. So there's lots of times where we're being visited or going in dream time or going physically with other civilizations that are highly benevolent, teaching us, supporting us, encouraging us, being wonderful. So we're getting both, and that's an important thing to remember. It's not just like look up at the skies and it's like, it's happening, you know?
I hope not. Yeah, because I've always been, you know, drawn off to the skies, but more to the, of course, the benevolent beings, especially the Pleiadians and Arcturians. So have you had contact with them as well?
I have, a lot. Various times, various ways. I connected with my Syrian counterpart when I was swimming with the dolphins. Like he came to me in a dream, and then I was like channeling all these symbols of like Syrian symbols, and so there was a lot of connection when I was with the dolphins there. And then my Pleiadian counterpart was the one who came to me in that first regression. He was the one when she said, you know, why are you okay with this? I like looked up, and like the view of this, he looked like Zeus. Like he was, you know, the Pleiadians are, you know, good looking and big, and
yeah, they're beautiful.
Like, they're beautiful. And so I'm like looking up at this Zeus guy, and I'm like, hello. And he's kind of like implanting, you know, telepathically saying, remember me, remember that I am you, remember why you came here. And then I you know, astral traveled to Pleiades and saw the Grand Council and saw him there.
I have to ask, what is the Grand Council?
Well, I mean, most of these civilizations have their, it's not super hierarchical, it's just more of a people that are ambassadors or maybe wisdom keepers. And it was, I mean, I didn't even know. I was like 5 kind of going back, but it seemed like some kind of council that was determining public affairs, determining like what needed to go on with Earth and what they needed help with. And so they were saying like, we need to go incarnate on Earth. We need to go help them out. We need to go work this out. And so it was said in the council or whatever that this Zeus dude, was going to come down and incarnate as me. But it's one of those things that it's like, it's not like I'm this Zeus dude in Pleiades, but it's just like, all it really is a soul remembrance of our greater self. And that's what I was imbued with, was like, remember that you have this greater support and you are this greater being energy. And all of us have that. All of us have these other incarnations that are supporting us, that are so beautiful. And that's the starseed idea, is that we're seated with that extraterrestrial energy that is wonderful, and that we're meant to remember that.
Yes. And that's where it also get very complicated for me, because at one side we're these multidimensional beings, but I'm confused about where I kind of come from. Is it that I can come from the Pleiadians and then I incarnate on Earth and other places, but I'm still at both places at the same time. But what about death then? Like when I actually leave my body here, will I then go back to another planet, or will I go, I don't know, to what we call heaven? Or is the Pleiadians a kind of heaven?
I mean, I would say that you just go back into like the greater, kind of, I guess, like a heaven, but like the greater scope of things, like back to the oversoul, back to this amorphous space to then, you know, reassess and figure out where we want to have a focused perspective again, you know, and then it's like, so I don't think there's like a true like soul origin where it's like, you know, my soul goes all the way back to Pleiades or something, because everything is happening now. And
Right.
I think that there's like lineages where you're wanting, where a certain soul is having more experiences than other people. Like there's kind of a trajectory of energies and focus. But it would be that everything is just as valid, and there's no one like creme de la creme, you know, perfect place to land kind of a thing.
It's still very complicated to me, but
It is.
I'm not sure if it's possible to understand as a human being. Actually, I've come to that because I've been searching for so many years, and at one point I'm like, you know, Janneke, it's a mystery. It's a mystery. Just leave it as a mystery. But still, I'm seeking for answers. It's funny. It's that paradox. But do you think that actually we are all hybrids, just to connect it a little bit to what we talked about, that actually humans, that we are starseeds coming from all these kinds of planets? So this is not the first time that this is happening, a kind of a hybrid program.
Right. And that's a great thing to remember too, that I mean, it's not going to make anyone feel any better necessarily, but that we came, like, humans were created on Earth as a slave race. But the bigger thing is we were mixed, you know, with the hominid was mixed with extraterrestrial genetics. So who we are right now is a hybrid. You're completely right. We're a turned off hybrid, you know, we're like, they turned off, you know, that third strand of DNA and made sure that we didn't remember our infinite selves, because we have the capacity in ourselves to do that. That is like who we were created to be. You know, they didn't want that to be who we were as like fully awakened, but it is who we are.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting, because I do believe that our history is completely different from what we learned in schools. Just thinking about the big sacred sites that we're going to speak about in our next interview, and the pyramids, that has always fascinated me, that no one seems to know how it was built and all that, and all the drawings of UFOs, and there are a lot of drawings around that are many thousand years old. But I wanted to go back a little bit to the hybrid children, and I know you've been doing some beautiful drawings of this. I have it here. Lily Luna is one child. I don't know if I pronounced it correctly.
I love your accent.
So you have painted it, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to show them on the screen right now. So who's this girl? Is it your child?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, tell us about her.
She's come to me many of times. She's kind of one of my, I call them ambassador children, the first 1 to 2 that really become your foremost kids, because people can have quite a few hybrid kids, so it's like they want to develop a relationship with some of them. And so Lily Luna has been that for me, and she's come to me many a times, and she'll just like insert herself into my dreams, you know, just like, whoop, there's her face, and it's not necessarily lucid. It's like I'm fully awake and conscious, but it's not even a dream. It's just kind of like an insertion being like, hey, I'm here. And she assisted a lot, especially in the beginning. Certain things, like when I needed to go to certain sacred sites, she'd be like, it's time to go to Mount Shasta. Or in my awakening, when the reason why she has the like horns above her head is because I was wondering what kind of archetypal energies that like I embody, because a lot of these kids, or all of these kids, are embedded with the archetypal energies of their parents. So it's a very similar essence. And so I was wondering, I'm like, well, what archetypal energies did I embed in my kids? You know, what do I have? And that next night, which was when I was on my way to Shasta, she came to me and she appeared with this horn on the top of her head. And I was like, what does that mean? And that next morning, the people I was staying with had a tarot deck, and I pulled a card, and it was the High Priestess. And she had the horn, which is also, in tarot, it's more at the bottom of the feet. But she was saying, like, it's the crown, which you're going to the crown chakra, Shasta, and it's the sign of the High Priestess. So this is what you have embedded into me. So there's a real,
Sorry.
bless you, there's a real intelligence to them, and they're teachers just as much as they are children. And so those are kind of some of the playful dynamics that we've had together, where it's really interactive, and she'll come to me in dreams or come to me telepathically in waking time. So that's her.
And what about Amber? Because from what I understand, you have 14 hybrid children or more?
Oh, is that what it is? I don't know.
I just heard it in an interview.
I think I have a lot. I think because I had to say a number. I think that's why I said that. Because I've had at least 14 come to me over the past few years. But I think there's more. Those are just the ones that have come, and I'm not sure exactly how many I have. I don't really count or care, because I just want to connect with them as they come up, instead of thinking them as a number. Right. But Amber, that was an interesting one, because she came to me when it was the first night I got with my now boyfriend, and we were together and we were sleeping, and I woke up kind of in the middle of the night, really emotional, and I didn't know why. And I knew that I had just been somewhere in my dreams, or been somewhere, but I couldn't remember. And so I was still pretty relaxed and like dreamy. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to use this like a regression. I'm going to go back into my dream. And so I went back in, and I found myself on a ship, and I was in this corridor. It was kind of like this. It wasn't in like a formal room. It was kind of like this was like a side sneaky thing or something. Like they weren't supposed to do it. And these two kids were there, and one was Amber and one was this little boy. And both of them just like looked at me, and I knew immediately that they were my kids. And I knew that they were also Patrick's kids, my boyfriend, but the guy I was just with. And I was like, whoa. Like, they were very clearly saying, like, we're both of your kids.
So not any involvement from the Greys then? Just the two of you?
It would be the two of us, and there would be some insertion, of some of their genetics as well. So it would be partial Grey too. And the little girl just looked at me and said, my name's Amber. And I was like, because usually they don't tell me their names for some reason. Like, they tell other people their names, but they don't tell me their names. So I was like, wow, Amber, okay, like, this is great. And I've always actually had a real, like, love for the stone, like Amber. And, like, and so anyways, that was how I was introduced to her. And then I didn't kind of hear from her. And then the two of us went to the Redwoods. And when we got to the Redwoods, I just felt her. It was like, this is me. I'm Amber, petrified like tree sap. I am like the trees. I am ancient, And she started talking to me. And then in another case, my boyfriend did have a dream about her. that Amber came to him, and he's like, "Are you Amber?" And she's like, "Yeah, I am." So he's even had a little bit of a connection with her too. So
Wow.
yeah.
Amazing. So you have, been speaking about this for a few years now. Are many people contacting you and saying that they feel they are hybrid mothers and
Tons.
yeah?
Yeah, tons. It's crazy because when I started out, it was just a few like hush hush people in the corner, a few moms that knew, that had remembered their experiences or had been contacted by the kids. And I mean, it was in like the maybe hundreds, like very few people knew about it. And then I got the clear directive to create the website with Sharon McCormick. We both co-created it together. And then from there, it just wildfire. Like I don't even know. In the first year, it got to like 20,000 people, and this is an obscure subject, like I don't even know how they found it, and now it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and more people from all around the world. This isn't just like a America thing or something. It's all around the world. Even before they see some of my videos, even before they read some of the material, they say that they've had these experiences. They say that they've met their kids, and they're similar stories to where and I know a lot of them aren't like on the internet, so I know that they're not making it up, and I can also like feel them too, and I'm like, it surprises me all the time. I'm like, wow, okay, there's like more. Here's another one from Australia. Here's another one from Scandinavia. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I just love that you're talking about it, because usually there's, information online, but it's so scattered and you don't get the whole picture and you don't know who to ask. And I remember in 2006, I started having lucid dreams, and I could find nothing online about it. And now, there's so many videos about lucid dreaming, astral projection, how to do this, how to do that. And it just amazes me. I think reality is actually more, how do you say it? Fantasy and reality is actually going together much more than we think, I believe.
I agree. And I think that if we started talking about it, we would find that we're all having these amazing experiences. And we are now. Like, we're having this conversation, and people online, like you said, are talking about lucid dreaming. But I think the more we can talk about everything, and just like get it out there, the more that we can start to piece it together, because like you said, it's like, we're in the dark. It's all a mystery. We really don't know that much. But at least if we start saying bits of what we do know or our experience, then we can start putting it together, and everything starts like really coming to life.
Yeah, because there's so many things in our psyche and subconsciousness that we have no idea. Why do I get attracted to this guy or this woman or this or that? And why did I do that? Like, there's so many things about ourselves that we don't know. So there's so many hidden shadows and everything. So my perspective and point of view is always to wonder and have an open mind. And like you said, try to put some pieces together and then evolve. Like, I think then we can expand more and more. Yeah. So thank you so much, Bridget. I think we're gonna end this conversation about hybrid children, but we're going to do another interview, and that will be about dolphins and sacred sites and Earth PowerPoints, and I'm excited about that. But thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for watching, guys, and make sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to check out more of my work. Much light from Oslo and Sedona. Bye-bye.
Bye.